Chapter 17. The Man with Two Faces. It was Quirrell. You, gasped Harry. Quirrell smiled. His face wasn't twitching at all. Me, he said calmly. I wonder whether I had been meeting you here, Potter. I thought Snape. Severus. Quirrell laughed. It wasn't his usual quivering treble either. Old and sharp. Yes, Severus does seem that type, doesn't he? So useful to him, swapping around like an overgrown bat. Next to him, who would suspect poor shuddering Professor Quirrell? Harry wouldn't take it in. This couldn't be true. It couldn't. But Snape tried to kill me. No, no, no. I tried to kill you. Your friend Miss Granger accidentally knocked me over as she rushed to set fire to Snape at the pitch man. She broke my eye contact with you another few seconds and I had have got you off that broom. I had have managed it before then if Snape hadn't been muttering a code words trying to save you. Snape was trying to save me. Of course, he queried coldly. Why do you think he wanted to referee you next match? He was trying to make sure I didn't do it again. Funny, really. He didn't have bothered. I couldn't do anything with Dumbledore's watching. All the other teachers thought Snape was trying to stop Gryffindor from winning. He did make himself unpopular. And what a waste of time when, after all that, I am going to kill you tonight. Quirrell snapped his fingers. The rope sprang out of thin air and wrapped themselves tightly around Harry. You are too nosy to lie. Potter, scurrying around the school and hollowing like that. For all I knew, you had seen me coming to look at what was guarding the stone. You let the troll in. Certainly, I have a special gift with trolls. You must have seen what I did to the one in the chamber back there. Unfortunately, while everyone else was running around looking for it, Snape, who already suspected me, went straight to the third floor to head me off. And not only did my troll fail but beat you to death. That three-headed dog didn't even manage to bite Snape's leg off properly. Now wait quietly. Potter, I need to examine this interesting mirror. It was only then that Harry realized what was standing behind Quirrell. It was the mirror of Irish. This mirror is the key to finding the stone, Quirrell murmured, tapping his way around the frame. Trust Dumbledore to come up with something like this. But he is in London. I'll be far away by the time he gets back. All Harry could think of doing was to keep Quirrell talking and stop him from concentrating on the mirror. I saw you and Snape in the forest, he blurted out. Yes, said Quirrell idly. Walking around the mirror to look at back, he was on to me by the time, trying to find out how far I had got. He suspected me all along, tried to frighten me, as though he could. I had Lord Voldemort on my side. Quirrell came back out from behind the mirror and stared hungrily into it. I see the stone. I am presenting it to my master. But where is it? Harry struggled against the rope, binding him. They didn't give he had to keep Quirrell from giving his whole attention to the mirror. But Snape always seemed to hate me so much. Oh, he does, said Quirrell casually. Heavens, yes. He was at Hogwarts with your father, didn't you know? They loathed each other, but he never wanted you dead. But I heard you a few days ago sobbing. I thought Snape was threatening you. For the first time, a spark of fear flitted across Quirrell's face. Sometime he said, I find it hard to follow my master's instruction. He is a great wizard and I am weak. You mean he was there in the classroom with you? Harry gasped. He is with me however I go, said Quirrell quietly. I met him when I travel around the world. A foolish young man I was then, full of ridiculous ideas about good and evil. Lord Voldemort showed me how wrong I was. There is no good and evil, there is only power, and those too weak to seek it. Since then I have served him faithfully, although I have let him many times. He has had to be very hard on me. Quirrell shivered suddenly. He doesn't not forgive mistakes easily. When I failed to steal the stone from Gringotts, he was most displeased. He punished me. Besides, he would have to keep closer watch on me. Quirrell's voice trembled. Harry was remembering his trip to Diagon Alley. How could he have been so stupid? He had seen Quirrell there that day, shaken hand with him in Licky Cauldron. Quirrell cursed under his breath. I don't understand. It's the stone inside the mirror. Should I break it? Harry's mind was racing. What I want more than anything else in the world at the moment, he thought, is to find the stone before Quirrell does. So if I look in the mirror, I should see myself finding it, which means I'll see where it hidden. But how can I look without Quirrell's realizing what I am up to? He tried to edge to the left to get in front of the glass without Quirrell's noticing, but the rope around his ankle were too tight. He tripped and fell over. Quirrell ignored him. He was still talking to himself. What does this mirror do? How does it work? Help me, master. And to Harry's horror, the voice answered, and the voice seemed to come from Quirrell himself. Use the boy, use the boy. Quirrell rounded on Harry. Yes, Potter, come here. He clapped his hand once, and the rope binding Harry fell off. Harry got slowly to his feet. Come here, Quirrell repeated. Look in the mirror and tell me what you see. Harry walked toward him. I must lie, he thought desperately. I must look and lie about what I see, that's all. Quirrell moved close behind him. Harry breathed in the funny smell that seemed to come to Quirrell's turban. He closed his eyes, stepped in front of the mirror, and opened them again. He saw his reflection, pale and scared, looking at first, but a moment later the reflection smiled at him. It put its hand into its pocket and pulled out a blood-red stone. It winked and put the stone back in its pocket. And as it did so, Harry felt something heavy dropped into his real pocket. Somehow incredible, he had gotten the stone. Well, said Quirrell impatiently, what do you see? Harry screwed up his courage. I see myself shaking hands with Dumbledore. He invented. I have won the house cup for Gryffindor. Quirrell cursed again. Get out of the way, he said. As Harry moved aside, he felt the sorcerer's stone against his leg. Dare he make a break for it? But he hadn't walked 5 feet before a high voice spoke. Though Quirrell wasn't move his lips. He lies. He lies. Potter, come back here. Quirrell shouted. Tell me the truth. What did you just see? The high voice spoke again. Let me speak to him face to face. Master, you are not strong enough. I have strength enough for this. Harry felt as if Devil's Sneer was rooting him to the spot. He couldn't move a muscle. Terrified, he watched as Quirrell reached up and began to unwrap his turban. What was going on? The turban fell away. Quirrell's head looked strangely small without it. Then he talked slowly on the spot. Harry would have screamed, but he couldn't make a sound. But there should have been a back to Quirrell's head. There was a face. The most terrible face Harry had ever seen. It was chalk white with glaring red eyes and slit for nostrils like a snake. Harry Potter, it whispered. Harry tried to take a step backward, but his leg couldn't move. See what I have become, the face said, mere shadow and vapor. I have from only when I can share another body. But there have always been those willing to let me into their hearts and minds. Unicorn blood has strengthened me these past weeks. You saw faithful Quirrell drink it for me in the forest. And once I have the elixir of life, I will be able to create a body of my own. Now, why don't you give me that stone in your pocket so he know? The feeling suddenly surged back into Harry's leg. He stumbled backward. Don't be fool, sneered the face. Better save your life and join me, or you'll meet the same end as your parents. They did begging me for mercy. Liar, Harry shouted suddenly. Quirrell was walking backward at him so that Voldemort could still see him. The evil face was now swelling. How touching it is. I always value bravery. Yes, boy, your parents were brave. I killed your father first, and he put up the courageous fight. But your mother hadn't have died. She was trying to protect you. Now give me the stone unless you want her to die in vain. Never. Harry sprang toward the flame door, but Voldemort screamed, "Seize him!" And the next second, Harry felt Quirrell's hand loose on his wrist at once. A needle sharp pain curled across Harry's scar. His head felt like tough it was about to split into he yelled, struggling with all his might, and to his surprise, Quirrell let go him. Pain in his head loosened. He looked round widely to see where Quirrell had gone and saw him hunched in pain. Looking at his fingers, they were blistering before his eyes. "Seize him! Seize him!" sickened Voldemort again, and Quirrell laughed, knocking Harry clean off his feet, landing on the top of him, both hands around Harry's neck. Harry's scar was almost binding him with pain, yet he could see Quirrell calling in agony. "Master, I cannot hold him. My hands, my hands!" Quirrell up pinning Harry to the ground with his knee, let go of his neck and stared, bewildered at his own power. Harry could see the look turned raw red and shiny. "Then kill him, fool, and be done!" screeched Voldemort. Quirrell raised his hand to perform a deadly curse, but Harry, by instinct, reached up and grabbed Quirrell's face. Ah! Quirrell rolled off him, his face burning too, and then Harry knew Quirrell couldn't touch his bare skin, not without suffering terrible pain. His only chance was to hold off Quirrell, keep him in enough pain to stop him from doing a curse. Harry jumped to his feet, caught Quirrell by the arm, and hugged as tight as he could. Quirrell screamed and tried to throw Harry off. The pain in Harry's head was building. He couldn't see, he could only hear Quirrell's terrible shrieks and Voldemort's yell of "Kill him, kill him!" And other voice, maybe in Harry's own head, crying, "Harry, Harry!" He felt Quirrell's arm wrenched from his grasp, knew all was lost, and fall into blackness. Down, down. Something gold was glistening just above him. The snitch. He tried to catch it. His arm were too heavy. He blinked. It wasn't the snitch at all. It was a pair of glasses. How strange. Blind again. The smile face of Albus Dumbledore swam into view above him. "Good afternoon," Harry said. Dumbledore. Harry stared at him, then he remembered, "Sir, the stone, it was Quirrell. He's got the stone, sir, quick." "Calm yourself, dear boy, you are a little behind the time," said Dumbledore. "Quirrell does not have the stone." "Then who does?" "Sir, Harry, please relax, or Madam Pomfrey will have me thrown out." Harry swallowed and looked around him. He realized he must be in the hospital wing. He was lying in a bed with a white lined sheet, and next to him was a table piled high with what looked like half the candy shop. "Token from your friends and admirers," said Dumbledore, beaming. "What happened down in the between you and Professor Quirrell is a complete secret. So naturally the whole school knows. I believe your friends, Mr. Fred and George Weasley, were responsible for trying to send you a toilet seat. No doubt they thought it would amuse you, Madam Pomfrey. However, felt it might not be very hygienic and confiscated it. How long have I been there? 3 days. Mr. Ronald Weasley and Miss Granger will be the most relieved you have come around. I have been extremely worried, but sit and the stone. I see you are not to be distracted very well. The stone, Professor Quirrell did not manage to take it from you. I arrived in time. Prevent that, although you were doing very well on your own, I must say you got Hermione's owl. You must have crossed in mid-air not sooner, and had I reached London that it became clear to me that place I should be was the one I had just left. I arrived just in time to pull Quirrell off you. It was you. I fear I might be too late. You nearly were. I couldn't have kept him off the stone much longer. Not the stone boy, you. The effort involved nearly killed you. For one terrible moment there, I was afraid it had. As for the stone, it has been destroyed. Destroyed, said Harry blankly, but your friend Nicholas Flamel. Oh, you know about Nicholas, said Dumbledore, sounding quite delighted. You did not think properly, didn't you? Well, Nicholas and I have a little chat and agreed it's for best. But that means he and his wife will die, won't they? Have enough elixir to see their affair in order and then yes, they will die. Dumbledore smiled at the look of amazement of Harry's face. To one as young as you, I am sure it seems incredible, but to Nicholas and Perennial, it really is like going to bed after a very, very long day. After all, to the well-organized mind, death is but the next great adventure. You know, the stone was really not such a wonderful thing, as much money and life as you could want. The two things most human beings would choose above all. The trouble is, humans do have knack of choosing precisely look those things that are worst for them. Until lie, they are lost for words. Dumbledore hummed a little and smiled at silly. Sir, said Harry, I have been thinking, sir, even if the stone gone, well, I mean, you know who, call him Voldemort. Harry always used the proper name for things. Fear of a name increased fear of the things itself. Yes, sir. Well, Voldemort going to try other ways to coming back, isn't he? I mean, he hasn't gone, has he? No, Harry, he has not. He is still out there somewhere, perhaps looking for another body to share. Not being truly alive, he cannot be killed. He left Quirrell to die. He showed just a little mercy to his followers as his enemies. Nevertheless, Harry, while you may only have delayed his return to power, it will merely take someone else who is prepared to fight what seems a losing battle next time. And if he is delayed again and again, what he may never return to power. Harry nodded, but stopped quickly, as he made his head hurt. Then he said, Sir, there are some other things I'd like to know. If you can tell me things I want to know that truth about. The truth. Dumbledore signed. It is beautiful and terrible thing, and should therefore he treated with great caution. However, I shall answer your question unless I have a very good reason not to. In which case, I beg you'll forgive me. I shall not, of course, lie. Well, Voldemort said that he only killed my mother because she tried to stop him from killing me. But why would he want to kill me in the first place? Dumbledore sighed very deeply this time. Ah, the first thing you ask me I cannot tell you. Not today, not now. You will though one day. Put it from your mind from now. Harry, when you are older, I know you hate to hear this. When you are ready, you will know. And Harry knew it would be no good to argue. But why couldn't Quirrell touch me? Your mother died to save you. If there is one thing Voldemort cannot understand, is love. Didn't realize that love as powerful as your mother's from you leave its own mark. What scar? No visible sign to have been loved so deeply, even though the person who loved us in gone will give us some protection forever. It is in your very skin. Quirrell, full of hatred, greed, and ambition, sharing his soul with Voldemort, could not touch you for this reason. It was agony to touch a person marked by something so good. Dumbledore now became very interested in a bird out on the window sills, which gave Harry time to dry his eyes on the sheet. When he had found his voice again, Harry said, And the invisibility clock, do you know who sent it to me? Your father happened to leave it in my possession. And I thought you might like it. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. Useful things. Your father used it mainly for sneaking off the kitchens to steal food when he was here. There is something else. Fire away. Quirrell said Snape. Professor Snape. Harry, yes, him. Quirrell said he hates me because he hated my father. Is that true? Well, they did rather detest each other, not unlike yourself and Mr. Malfoy, and then your father did something Snape would never forgive. What? He saved his life. What? Yes, said Dumbledore dreamily. Funny. The way people's mind work isn't Professor Snape couldn't bear being in your father's debt. I do believe he worked so hard to protect you this year because he felt that would make him and your father even. Then he could go back to hating your father's memory in peace. Harry tried to understand this, but it made his head pound. So he stopped and said, there is one more thing, just one. How did I get the stone out of the mirror? Oh, now, I'm glad you asked me that. It was one of my more brilliant ideas, and between you and me, that's saying something. You see, only one who want to find the stone find it, but not use it would be able to get it, otherwise they had just seen themselves making cold or drinking elixir of life. My brain surprise even me sometimes. Now enough questions. I suggest you make a start on these sweets. Ah, Betty Botti, ever flavor beans. I was unfortunate enough in my youth to come across a warm clover one. And since then, I am afraid I have rather lost my liking from them. But I think I'll be safe with a nice toffee, don't you? He smiled and popped the golden brown bean into his mouth. Then he stopped and said, Als, your walks. Madame Pomfrey, the nurse, was a nice woman but very strict. Just 5 minutes. Harry paid absolute nod. You let Professor Dumbledore in. Well, of course, that was the headmaster, quite different. You need rest. I am resting. Look, lying down and everything. Oh, go on, Madame Pomfrey. Oh, very well, she said, but 5 minutes only. And she let Ron and Hermione in. Harry. Hermione looked ready to fling her arms around him again, but Harry was glad she held herself in as his head was still very sore. Oh, Harry, we were sure you were going to Dumbledore was so worried. The whole school talking about it, said Ron. What really happened? It was one of those rare occasions when the true story is even more strange and exciting than the wild rumors. Harry told them everything Quirrell, the mirror, the stone, and the Voldemort. Ron and Hermione were a very good at the audience. They gasped in all the right places. And when Harry told them what was under Quirrell's turban, Hermione screamed out loud. So the stone's gone? Said Ron finally. Flamel's just going to die. That's what I said, but Dumbledore thinks that. What was it? To the well-organized mind, death is but the next great adventure. I always said he was off his rocker, said Ron, looking quite impressed at how crazy his hero was. So what happened to you two? Said Harry. Well, I got back all right, said Hermione. I brought Ron around. That took a while, and we were dashing up to the Owlry to contact Dumbledore when we met him in the entrance hall. He already knew. He just said Harry's gone after him, hasn't he? And hurtled off to the third floor. Do you think he meant you to do it? Said Ron, sending you your father's clock and everything. Well, Hermione exploded. If he did, I mean you to say that terrible you could have been killed. No, it isn't, said Harry truthfully. He is a funny man. Dumbledore, I think he sort of wanted to give me a chance. I think he knows more or less everything that goes on here. You know, I reckon he had a pretty good idea we were going to try, and instead of stopping us, he just thought us enough to help. I don't think it was an accident. He let me find out how the mirror works. It's almost like he thought I had the right to face Voldemort if I could. Yeah, Dumbledore off his rocker. All right, said Ron promptly. Listen, you have got to be up for the end of year feast tomorrow. The points are all in the Slytherin zone. Of course, you missed the last Quidditch match. We were steamrolled by Ravenclaws without you. But the food will be good. that moment, Madame Pomfrey bustled over. You have had nearly 15 minutes now out, she said firmly. After a good night's sleep, Harry felt nearly back to normal. I want to go back to feast, he told Madame Pomfrey as she straightened his many candy boxes. Can't I? Professor Dumbledore say you are to be allowed to go, she said stiffly, as though, in her opinion, Professor Dumbledore realized how risky feast could be. And you have another visitor. Oh God, said Harry. Who is it? Hagrid sidled through the door as he spoke. As usual, when he was indoor, Hagrid looked too big to allow. He sat down next to Harry, took one look at him, and burst into tears. It's all my ruddy fault. He sobbed, his face in his hand. I told the evil gate how to get past Fluffy. I told him it was only thing he don't know. And I told him you couldn't have died. All for a dragon egg. I'll never drink again. I should be chunked out and made to live as a muggle. Hagrid, said Harry, shocked to see Hagrid shaking with grief and remorse, great tear leaking down into his beard. Hagrid, he had have found out somehow this his Voldemort's talking about. He had have found out even if you hadn't told him. You could have died, sobbed Hagrid, and don't say the name. Voldemort, Harry bellowed, and Hagrid was so shocked he stopped crying. I have met him and I am calling his name by his name. Please cheer up. Hagrid, we saved the stone, it's gone. He can't use it. Have a chocolate frog, I have got lots of his hand and said that remind me I have got you a present. It's not a sauce sandwich, is it? Said Hagrid anxiously, and the last Hagrid gave a big chuckle. Ah, Dumbledore gave me the day off yesterday to fix it. Of course, he shouldn't shake me instead. Anyway, you this. It seemed to be a handsome leather-covered book. Harry opened it curiously. It was full of wizards' photographs. Smiling and waving at him from every page were his mother and father. Saint Olaf to all your parents, old school friends asking for photos. Knew you didn't have any you like it. Harry couldn't speak but Hagrid understood. Harry made his way down to end of year feast along that night. He had been held up by Madame Pomfrey's fussing about, insisting on give him one last checkup, so the great hall was already full. It was decked out in the Slytherin colors of green and silver to celebrate Slytherin's win the House Cup for the 7th year in a row. A huge banner showing Slytherin's serpent covered all the behind a high table. When Harry walked in, there was sudden hush, and everybody started talking loud at once. He slipped into a seat between Ron and Hermione at the Gryffindor table and tried to ignore the fact that people were standing up to look at him. Fortunately, Dumbledore arrived. Moment later, the bandit died away. Another year gone, Dumbledore said cheerfully, and I must trouble you with an odd man's whizzing waffle before we sink our teeth into our delicious feast. What a year it has been. Hopefully, your heads are all a little fuller than they were. You have a whole summer ahead to get them nice and empty before next year's start. Now I understand it. The House Cup here need awarding, and the point stand does. In fourth place, Gryffindor with 312 points. In third, Hufflepuff with 352. Ravenclaw has 426. And Slytherin 472. A storm of cheering and stamping broke out from the Slytherin's table. Harry could see Draco Malfoy bagging his goblet and the table. It was sickening sight. Yes, yes, well done, Slytherin, said Dumbledore. However, recent event must be taken into account. The room went very still. The Slytherin smile faded a little. Ahem, said Dumbledore, I have a few last minute points to dish out. Let me see. Yes. First to Mr. Ronald Weasley. Ron went purple in the face. He looked like a radish with a bad sunburn. For the best played game of chess Hogwarts has seen in many years, I award Gryffindor House 50 points. Gryffindor chair nearly raised the bewitched ceiling. The star overhead seemed to quiver. Percy could be here telling the other perfect. My brother, my youngest brother, got past McGonagall's gin chest said. At last there was a silence again, second to Miss Hermione Granger for the use of cool logic in the face of fire. I award Gryffindor House 50 points. Hermione buried her face in her arm. Harry strongly suspected she had burst into tears. Gryffindor up and down the table were beside themselves. They were 100 points up. Third to Mr. Harry Potter, said Dumbledore. The room went deadly quiet for pure nerve and outstanding courage, and I award Gryffindor House 60 points. The Dean was defeating. Those who could add up while yelling themselves hoarse knew that Gryffindor now had 472 points, exactly the same as Slytherin. They had tied for the House Cup. If only Dumbledore had given Harry just one more point. Dumbledore raised his hand. The room gradually fell silent. There are all kinds of courage, said Dumbledore, smiling. It takes a great deal of bravery to stand up to our enemies, but just as much as stand up to our friends. I therefore award 10 points to Mr. Neville Longbottom. Someone standing outside the Great Hall might well have some sort of explosion had taken place, so loud was the noise that erupted from the Gryffindor's table. Harry, Ron, and Hermione stood up to yell and cheer as Neville, white with shock, disappeared under a pile of people hugging him. He had never won as much point for Gryffindor before. Harry, still cheering, nudged Ron in the rib and pointed at Malfoy, who couldn't have looked more stunned and horrified if he had just had the body bind curse put on him, which means Dumbledore called over the storm of applause. For seven Ravenclaws and Hufflepuff, we are celebrating the downfall of Slytherin. We need a little change of decoration. He clapped his hand. In an instant, the green hanging became scarlet and the silver became gold. The huge Slytherin serpent vanished and a towering green floor slid into place. He was shaking Professor McGonagall's hand with a horrible forced smile. He caught Harry's eye, and Harry knew at once that Snape's feeling toward him hadn't changed one jot. This didn't worry Harry. It seemed as tough life would be back to normal next year, or as normal as it ever was at Hogwarts. It was the best evening of Harry's life, better than winning Quidditch of Christmas or knocking out mountain trolls. He would never ever forget tonight. Harry had almost forgotten that exam results were still to come, but come they did. To their great surprise, both he and Ron passed with good marks. Hermione, of course, had the best grade of the first year. Even Neville scrapped through his good herbology marks, making up for his abysmal potion one. They had hoped that Goyle, who was almost as stupid as he was mean, might be thrown out, but he had passed too. It was a shame, but as Ron said, you couldn't have everything in life. And suddenly their wardrobes were empty. Their trunks were packed. Neville's sword was found lurking in the corner of the toilet. Notes were handed out to all students, warning them not to use magic over holiday. I always hope they'll forget to give us this, said Fred Weasley sadly. Hagrid was there to take them down to the fleet of boats that sailed across the lake. They were boarding at the Hogwarts Express, talking and laughing as they capsized, become greener and tiring, eating Betty Botty every flare beans as they sped past Muggles Town, pulling off their wizard robes and putting on jackets and coats, pulling into platform 9 and 3/4 at King's Cross Station. It took quite a while for them all to get off the platform. A wizened old guard was up by the ticket barrier, letting them go through and get it toes and three so they didn't attract attention by all bursting out of the solid wall at wall and alarming the muggles. You must come and stay this summer, said Ron. Both of you. I'll send you an all. Thanks, said Harry. I'll need something to look forward. People joined still them as they moved forward toward gateway back to Muggles World. Some of them called bye bye Harry, see you Potter. Still famous, said Ron, grinning at him. Not where I am going, I promise you, said Harry. He, Ron, and Hermione passed through the gateway through. There he is, Mom. There he is. Look, it was Ginny Weasley. Ron, your sister. But she wasn't pointing at Ron. Harry Potter, she squealed. Look, Mom, I can see. Be quiet. Ginny, and it's rude to point. Mr. Weasley smiled down at them. Buzzy near ears, he said. Very, said Harry. Thank for the food and the sweater, Miss Weasley. Oh, it was nothing, dear. Ready are you? It was Uncle Vernon, still purple face, still mustache, still looking furious at the nerve of Harry, carrying an owl in cage in the station full of ordinary people. Behind him stood Aunt Putania and Dudley, looking terrified at the very sight of Harry. You must be Harry's family, said Miss Weasley. In a manner of speaking, said Uncle Vernon. Hurry up, boy, we haven't got all day. We walked away. Harry hung back for the last word with Ron and Hermione. See you over the summer then. Hope you have a good holiday, said Hermione, looking uncertainly after Uncle Vernon, shocked that anyone could be so unpleasant. Oh, I will, said Harry, and they were surprised at the green mood that was spreading over his face. They don't know we are not allowed to use magic at home. I am going to have a lot of fun with Dudley this summer. The end. This was the end of the part 1. Soon I'll bring part 2. Till then, stay tuned. Bye bye. See ya.